afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. I know that you all have very busy schedules and a lot going on during the semester, so thanks very much for your time. So today is our first installment of what we're calling the TAMU-CC Teaching Talks. So each month, the CFE is going to offer a roundtable WebEx discussion among faculty who are participating in the Association of College and University Educators, also known as ACU, Course in Effective Teaching Practices. So as many of you who are participating know, this course ensures that faculty are learning about and implementing various approaches that improve classroom engagement, persistence, and ultimately promote deeper learning for our students. This 24-module course spans over the fall and the spring semesters, and TAMU-CC currently has 2 cohorts of about 30 faculty each who are participating in these intensive modules and lessons. Several of our faculty participants are here today, thank you very much, to share some of their favorite strategies and techniques that they've gained from the course so far. So far, we're in the 3rd module right now. Each panelist will have about 5 minutes to share, and I will introduce now in the order in which they will speak. So thank you very much to Robin Karstensen. Hello, Robin. Shane Gordon. Shane. Susan Greathouse. Did Yvonne join us? We have Yvonne. Yvonne may join us later. Scott Sherman. Dr. Sherman. Jessica Song. Hello, Jessica. And Michelle Staples. And so thank you for all of our faculty panelists today, and thank you also for those of you who have joined us. Also, a huge thank you and shout out to Pam Green, who is serving with me as the co-facilitator of the cohort, as well as taking the course herself. So hello, Pam. Thank you all very much for your hard work. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Robin.
All right. Thank you so much, Kelly. Appreciate it. Hi, everybody. It's so great to be here and be in the class, and I'm excited. I'm going to start my 5 minutes right now. I'll try to end before that. I'm going to talk about techniques from my Strategies of Writing Creative Nonfiction class. Can everybody hear me okay? There's all good? Okay. So this is the main learning module 3, engaging underprepared students. One of the instructors said every student really is underprepared coming in because they don't know what our expectations are. Going to be looking at assignments and activities. And the other instructor talked about working backwards from a particular assignment, that we're always working backwards. So talking about starting with the midterm portfolio that comes in around mid-October. And in this class, that would be a braided portrait essay along with a memoir. So the very first essay we look at is a portrait essay. And this, we're talking about author's personal experience along with a person that they interview, their personal experience and some historical connection. And what I specifically asked the student to do for this portrait essay that comes in midterm is ask the student to interview an elder in their family or community about a historical event that shaped their life. And then also the student author will write about a historical event that shaped their own life. And in that writing process, arrive at a connection or connections between the two. So to get there, working backwards, every writing and reading assignment or revision has a deliberate purpose of reading in that specific genre, discussing the writer's technical movements in that genre, and then applying those technical writing elements, practicing the craft, developing those techniques in daily practice and response. So beginning with the very first day, and that's the first day introduction portrait that I asked students to do. Asking the students in their group discussion forums, which I've already set up on Blackboard for first day. I've already sent them 2 welcomes messages, and we kind of move right in. And I asked the question about how they stayed motivated this summer through the challenges of a pandemic. What gave them strength? What gave them comfort, motivation through the tough times? And it's a multi-level, multi-purpose activity. In Learning Module 1, we learn about setting up course expectations that allow the students to know what's going to be expected for the rest of the course. And it's a writing intensive course, so we jump right into this writing environment. We're also writing specifically in the genre that we're going to be writing towards. And for the first assignment, We're also building community and trust. That's very important early on, sharing common vulnerabilities, getting to know one another in the forums. Part of the Learning 2 module too is that kind of communication, professional communication. So right away, I asked them to respond briefly with positive reinforcement, encouraging comments to their peers. And so that's sort of covering L1, L2, L3. The readings are always in the genre that we're writing towards. And so every week I'm posting a practice prompt, and they're writing on these exercises each week in the forums. This particular one, and I posted a link in the chat forum to the by Waverly Fitzgerald on the braided portrait essay, which is really interesting. I also posted the actual main essay that we read. We read short essays, and then I kind of readjusted and realized I was assigning too much at one time. So it's a 15-minute class that I'm adjusting to. So I decided, okay, 15-minute class, let's just all cover and talk about one essay. And so this one is out of Prairie Schooner, which is a really wonderful, like one of the top literary journals in the country. And this particular essay called Miss Saigon, I found it was a perfect braided essay because it's about the author who's the author's mother was part of the fall of Saigon. And so it talks about that mother's experience, and it also talks about the author's experience in Hurricane Katrina. And then there's a lot of information in between, a connection between the two in terms of sort of histories of racialization, intercultural, intergenerational ways that, in this specific case, the ways that standards of beauty are translated from culture to generation. It's a really fascinating. So part of also as an English professor in the English department, we're trying to do course road mapping where we're showing how our courses, and we're trying to improve on the ways that we develop our curriculum and reading assignments to allow students to pursue conversations and knowledge about, and I'm done, I'm supposed to be done, so I'll wrap up the sentence. Just pursue conversations about histories of racialization, racism, and minoritized groups. So I'm done. Sorry, time's out. Thank you.
Robin, thank you. Shane, would you like to share some of your experiences and strategies from the course so far?
Yeah, absolutely. And starting that timer. So what I'd like to talk about is an improvement I've discovered on something I've been doing for quite some time already with my courses. So on the first day of class, historically, what I've done is I've given students a note card, and I ask them a couple of things on this note card. I ask them their name, what name they prefer to go by, what their major is, why they took my class, their major, things like that. But really, the most important thing I ask them is the final question, which is there anything you want me to know about you? And you get a lot of my favorite colors, purple. Cats are my favorite animals. This happens every time I'm on WebEx. You get a lot of things like that. But occasionally you get a student who will say, like, I'm an athlete and I might miss class for a track meet. Or you get a student say, this is my first semester of school and I'm absolutely terrified, or I have bad anxiety and it impacts me taking tests. And what I do is I go through all those note cards. I email those students, pointing them to campus resources where it will be where appropriate, or just saying, hey, if you find yourself struggling, please don't hesitate to reach out. It takes a lot of time after the first day of class. You'd be amazed how many emails you can send. But I think it's well worth the investment in terms of building trust, particularly in my introductory classes in the learning communities where I'm that one lone person up in front of 200 students. So what I tried this time around was I used the suggestion about the reciprocal interviews from the first week. So this is the idea of students ask you questions. And thinking about this, this semester I've already transitioned my note cards to a Blackboard quiz worth 0 points, just to reduce the number of things that have to pass between hands. But I added a new question, and I did this in one of my classes, not in the other, to kind of track how well it worked. I added a new question: what do you want to know about me? Or what questions do you have about the course? And by doing that, I discovered a couple things. For one, my description of my writing assignments is not as clear as I thought it was. So that's going to be revised in the future. I also found a lot of students, had questions like, I teaching state and local government this semester. I use a lot of examples, other states, where I've lived before, comparing Texas. And I've had a lot of questions, just kind of, I would call them quote unquote, trying to get to know you questions, like, what do you like best about Texas so far? When did you realize Texas is better than Ohio? You know, Michelle, I appreciate you laughing. You get, and I really do feel like in that class in particular, the amount of engagement during lecture, and I have a very kind of semi-Socratic back and forth lecture style, the level of engagement, even with all the COVID restrictions, has been much greater. So it was one extra question, it was a few extra things to respond to, but I think it's done wonders for improving student engagement in the class, and it's something I'm going to keep on doing, and I definitely encourage you all to do it as well if it works for your teaching style. That's all I got.
Shane, thank you. I've also had some good experiences with the first day introduction. I borrowed Shamay's introductory PowerPoint idea, where I just gave my students a little bit of extra information, a little personal and professional background about me, and found that one of my students attended my office hours, probably the only student who's attended my online office hours all semester. And she wasn't asking about the course, she was asking me about my previous grant writing experience, because she had just started at a nonprofit organization and was in charge of development. So we were able to forge that connection and that bond, and it really had nothing to do with the class, but it was only because I had disclosed a little bit of personal information about myself. So, and I was very thankful to see a student in my office hours. So Shane, thank you very much for sharing. Susan, would you like to share some of your experiences?
Sure. I'm going to share one that I did and one that I'm excited to plan to do. So on the very first day, I did the syllabus reconnaissance. I tried to incorporate that into my course. Previously, I pretty much went over parts of the syllabus, not all of the syllabus. I asked the students to read it in advance, and most everything came from me. So this was kind of turning that around, and the students were asked to, through an email, to come having read the syllabus and marking their syllabus with what they thought was important, what they thought was maybe exciting, and then questions that they might have. I had a small group of students, but I had actually a fair amount of really good questions. And I think they have a better understanding. We're into week 5 now of the course, and they have a better understanding, I think, of what the expectations were. And it allowed me to add a little bit of information to their questions, but coming from them, I think they were more attentive. So I would definitely do that again in terms of going over the syllabus. And I think had I had a bit more lead time, the students would have had more time to think and reflect about the syllabus before we went pretty much to class, but we didn't have a lot of lead time because of when it occurred in the course. The other part that I'm excited about doing is the performance prognosis inventory. So the technique of really looking at performance at students that are underprepared, evaluating their performance and looking at what it's going to take to get a good grade. And there is a form, and I think that AQ has lots of really good resources, and one of them was put out by Dr. Saunders McGuire, which was a performance prognosis inventory for chemistry. So I'm going to try and revise that and use that in the next semester with my students. And I do teach a course of students that are struggling a bit and are taking a course to improve their test taking skills and abilities. And I'm hoping that this will help them self-reflect and will help will give me a good idea of areas to key upon and things that they could maybe give them more confidence in their performance as they go forward. So that to me is an exciting activity to try the next go round.
All right, wonderful. Thank you very much, Susan. Let's see, was Yvonne able to join us? Doesn't look like.
Shirley, can I just interject real quick with what you said?
Yes, absolutely.
I read something that somebody did with it. I plan on doing that, Susan, with the syllabus.
Michelle, I think you went.
Oh, I went. Oh, there we go. I don't know why I did that. Somebody said they uploaded their syllabus to Google Docs and then had the students comment and question and do the syllabus reconnaissance that way, so that when you do run out of time in class, they can continue that online. And that way, for me, since I'm doing synchronous and asynchronous learning, the students could do that like on an asynchronous day, and then we could come on the synchronous day and really go more in depth with that. So I'm planning on doing that. So I really like that, Susan. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you both. Michelle, that's a great suggestion. All right, Jessica, you're on with us. Would you like to share some of your experiences from the course so far?
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, cool. So what I did is I asked my students who were writing the learning reflections, just like what we're doing each week. So I asked them to doing the unit learning reflections, and it seems that way the students more engaging with the concept, and some concept they feel like they learned before, but they just kind of like forgot, and they will also sharing the tips, tricks during their learnings. So basically, I'm using the discussion board. Others can view their learning reflections, and they can comment on. And sometimes they just kind of like finding some useful learning tips on certain subjects. I mean, the concept, the topics we talked that week. And I also did some cafe. So that's more happened from last semesters. Is I have students who request that cafe time. So I usually have open office hours outside that 5 designed office hours. So the student will just come to my office. But after we during that campus closures, how students want to talk, but they can't, so they can send me request. We have like a WebEx coffee time. So during that time, they can just talk about the things related to the class, or the things kind of bother them, or some they just need to talk. Like I'm just kind of give that time, like an open time for them. And there one thing I planning to do, and I totally forgot at the beginning of the semester is, so I do under course survey to collecting the feedbacks from the students regarding the student learning outcomes. And I want to do a comparison on that. So I supposed to send the survey out at the beginning of the class to gather how they feel about the learning, the student learning outcomes for that course based on the course syllabus. And unfortunately, I didn't do this semester. So I'm planning to do next semesters. So this way I can compare the two survey results, and also the students can also compare at the beginnings what they stand with those learning the learning outcomes, and by the end of the semesters, how they feel about those learning outcomes. But I did go over what my expectations and the alignments, how I'm going to assess what kind of assignments related to used to assess for their learning outcomes. So for each learning outcomes, I have a related like performance indicator to do that assessment. And then I have another class is upper level, upper diversions. So basically, this class is the prerequisites for the other class. So I'm kind of doing that comparisons to see if there are any things I need to reverse in this lower diversion class to make a smooth transit. And if they assess like a same learning outcomes, so I will kind of compare their performance indicators. Yeah, that's what I did. Thank you.
Jessica, thank you for sharing. That's a great idea of incorporating the reflections for your students. Did you all use the rubric or a version of the rubric that AQ provided for us?
I created the own rubric. So for each one, because the learning outcomes, some is for like like a critical writings and probably up to 2 pages, and some is about how to using the softwares that's popular in industries. So that's different. Different assessment, different rubric. So I have an individual rubrics.
Wonderful. Thank you again for sharing. And I went out of order in our presentation. Scott, would you like to share with us? I apologize for skipping and going to Jessica.
Yeah, so I'm the last two.
Scott, I think can't hear you. I see you're wearing headphones. You may want to check your connection with your headphones, your audio connection. Can anyone else hear Scott right now? No. Scott, if you like, we could give you a few more minutes to, okay. Okay, we'll go to the next one. Michelle, would you like to go ahead and start sharing?
Sure. I'm actually going to piggyback off of a couple other people. Shane talked about how he was tweaking previous things, and I believe Robin talked about underperforming or underprepared students. And that's my topic today, is underprepared students and tweaking my own, what I've already been doing. One of the things I really like about AQ is it kind of validates what we're already doing well. Also, a lot of the strategies that they've brought forth, I'm actually doing already. So I'm just having, like Shane said, tweaking a little bit, finding out where my weak areas are. And then some of the things I'm doing, I'm like, hey, I got that. I'm doing that already. So one of the areas I thought I was doing well, but I need to tweak is monitoring my students' activity and taking quick action. I grade fiercely and quickly, but I don't always, and I give lots of feedback. But what about those students who are falling through the cracks? What am I doing with those? I often flag them through Starfish. And so I thought, okay, I'm doing everything right. But if you look at 2E, underprepared students, in one of the handouts they give us, they talk about why students don't always follow through with quizzes, discussion boards, and assignments. And they might be having technical difficulties, and that's certainly true right now with COVID. They might have poor connectivity. They might live in a rural area. They might not have connectivity at all. They might not have internet. Personal problems in their personal life. I've had several students, after I've flagged them, they've gotten back to me. They are feeling disconnected from students. Right now with COVID, they're having to wear masks. They're, online. And so, of course, the lack of preparation is a lot of the problem. They don't have textbooks right now because they couldn't get it or they can't afford it. So lack of comprehension of the material, that's really not the problem most of the time they're telling me. It's these other issues. It's COVID, it's stress, working multiple jobs, technical difficulties. So I really like this handout, and that it showed a sample email at the bottom. It just says, Hi, Jennifer. I've noticed that you've not been posting in our discussion forum for the past 2 weeks. So I'm wondering what's going on in your life. Is everything okay? What can I do to help you? So rather than just flagging them on Starfish where it says, you're failing, you're going to fail, maybe you should drop, it's being more human, more empathetic. And I am in person, but I'm online. All of my classes are online. And so maybe I'm not coming across as empathetic as I should. So this really hit home because I did flag a student in Starfish, and I did add, you still have a chance to pass this course if you put the effort in. And so she reached out to me and she said, I don't even know how to start the discussion boards, Dr. Staples. I'm struggling with that. So I thought, I need to take a step back. So one of the things, though, I did try with what they talked about with underprepared students is having your first assignment being less, not for a grade. So it was already for a grade in my grade book, but I gave everybody full credit it's for a discussion board. But I used the rubric and I showed them, I said, I gave them full credit, but I put in the comments, you didn't answer the initial prompt with 2 paragraphs, 2 in-depth paragraphs. So you would have gotten this on the rubric. And for the responses, your responses were very shallow. They just said, I agree. You would have gotten this. So next week you need to bump it up, see the directions. And so by doing that, that was the first week. The next week, I actually had a few students email me and said, your comments helped me a lot. I knew where it was lacking. And so they did better on the second one. So it took some of that risk away. That student didn't respond to the first one, so she didn't get that feedback. So she's still lost on the discussion boards. So now I know I can email her the rubric and she can have a little bit more response to that. So I just like that this gives us little pointers on the way things we're doing already, but that we could just do better. And so that's why I'm really appreciative of it.
Michelle, thank you very much for sharing that. And you raise a really good point about the importance of all of us right now extending a little bit more grace and a little bit more empathy through all of the additional stressors that our students are experiencing right now. So thank you very much.
Oh, no, you're not alone. I use Starfish like crazy. I'm a Starfish addict. I'm waiting for them to put out that report so we can show they're doing well. So.
All right, thank you. Let's see. All right, Dr. Sherman, were you able to get your audio connected? Let's see.
Well, you can hear me now? Okay. Had to change out headphones and go with the camera mic. It was telling me it was working, but it wasn't. One of the biggest things that I have really appreciated from the AQ was not so much that, this is new, this is different. It was the idea that it was a framework to go back and look at what I have been doing and to go, okay, now let's put a new vision on it, a new way of thinking about it. When I especially got to the part on promoting civility, by the way, I think some of their section titles are kind of bizarre, but that's just a position, because it's how do you start communication in a professional manner. And what really was very powerful for me is that it made me aware of their anxiety by reading, understanding more, reconnecting with their anxiety. And in the process, I connected with my own anxiety. This is a drastically different environment. I've stood in front of people for years. Yes, the gray hair is earned. There's a reason it's there. And to do this online, or to do this in a classroom, but not normally in a classroom. In a classroom, I'm now wearing a hard hat with a face shield. I have too fat of a head to wear the university supplied face mask. It doesn't work. We're talking something of this nature. And that led me to, and this was one of the most powerful things about the AQ, as I'm writing the paper, I'm going, okay, I need to approach both anxiety and technology. And the anxiety was my own anxiety and talked to them about their anxiety. And it was interesting because in my face-to-face class and talking about anxiety, the capstone course, it changed the tone of the room. It changed the tone to, yes, we're all, this is bizarre to all of us. Let's be okay with being bizarre. Let's be okay with being anxious. And so I really, really did appreciate that from my students. And we have been using, we haven't been using, we've been trying to use various forms of technology. We're still sorting through those. But the key was to start that conversation with them about that, and to go back and use a start, stop, continue. What is it I need to start doing to support you? What is it I need to stop doing to support you? And what is it I need to continue to doing to support you? And one of the biggest things we had to do was a very experiential course. We had to go through group formation. We did that face-to-face in a COVID environment, and it was an interesting process. We sort of started a train through the room as you made a loop, socially distanced, and when you found the group that you wanted, you signaled you're part of that group, and then you stepped out of the train, and the train continued until everybody was in a group. It wasn't high tech, but it worked. So I would never have been open to doing something like that if I hadn't reached out to them and understood their concerns and my concerns. That's it.
Scott, thank you for sharing. And you raise obviously a very good point that this is just uncharted territory for all of us right now. And we're all, what did you say? It's okay for us to accept being bizarre, that it is for everyone. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
We have a couple of folks in the web who I know are also participating in the course. So Shimei, Ron Scott, Ferry, Patricia, Miguel, would any of you like to share any of your experiences or some of the best practices that you've gleaned from the course so far? Not to put you on the spot, but I am. Wait, Shimei, hold on just a second. I'm unmuting you. I can see you.
Okay. Oh gosh, I had a terrible muting accident the other day. I went to Dr. Metcalf's question and answer session, and I did not realize I was unmuted, and I had a conversation with my husband, and I was making lunch. It was so embarrassing. You would not believe, even my students were like emailing me and saying, Professor Burnett, mute your mic. Oh, it was horrible. One of the things that I really like about the AQ is sort of using Scott's word framework just to see the layout and the structure of how they're teaching us is providing me like models, like mental models for how I want to like lay out material too. So I definitely appreciate that. And then for engaging underprepared students, just this idea about being very clear about the expectations. And one thing that I'm using to do that is in the way I create my assignments. I'm trying to make it really simple, and I go like, here's what I want you to do, and it's a very short little thing, like a couple sentences that says what the assignment is, and then it's like, here's why we're doing it. And then I tie it to the course outcomes. And then the last part is the most extensive, and it's like, here's how to do it. And then that's where I'll have the rubric and the checklist, exemplars, and tips on how to accomplish it. And I feel like having a framework like that sort of shows up again and again and again is very helpful for helping them to understand how these assignments relate to what they're supposed to be learning, And so I've really enjoyed doing that, and I think it's helped the students out quite a bit.
Thank you, Shemay. Very good points. Would anyone else like to share who's participating in the course? Miguel? I'm going to unmute you, Miguel.
All right, thank you. One of the suggestions from the helping unprepared students was the creation of videos, and I found that very helpful. And I'm currently teaching a class where students need to engage software to do statistics, which is, surprisingly unsatisfying to students. And so what I've done is I've tried to create these videos that take them through the lab assignments and help them by illustrating exactly where they need to point and click, how to highlight, how to look at drop-down menus, and why it is you're picking this, and why it is you're typing in these cells, and just the idea of cells like A11, something that seems so intuitive to me after years and years of doing it. I have to go back and try to develop the instructions word for word as if they don't know anything. And I've heard from my lab instructors that the effect of these videos is like night and day. For the most part, the students were spending all their lab session just asking questions of, how do I do this? How do I do that? Now they just play the video, although it's different data that I'm using in my demo. It's the same click and point and the features that they're using, and the questions regarding how to do it has really gone down, and now they're focusing more on the more important questions of what do the numbers mean, which is what I really want them to focus on. So thank you.
Miguel, thank you. I have a similar experience in the senior seminar course that I'm teaching right now. The seniors now have to deliver their final research poster via a narrated PowerPoint presentation. So I created a narrated PowerPoint presentation explaining each click, go up to the menu, hit slideshow, then hit record, and then make sure that you're ready to record. And it is very intimidating of how specific you have to be with each step of the process. So I certainly share that. Would anybody else like to say a few words about their experiences with the course so far? Right.
Yeah, I will try to say something. I had to move to a different meeting. This is Sari here. Taking this course, I'm applying a lot of points that I learned here in the course that I'm teaching right now. Before, I assumed students know it when I say it in class or even over the online. And then I realized that I better make a video before, and then it might be only 5 or 10 minutes, and then put it online and then have students look over it over and over again. Because I was saying things in class like, I'm working with students on presenting, and I was telling them, do this for the PowerPoint, do this for your presentation, do this for the writing. But then I would get the paper, nothing was done. I mean, nothing was done properly. Then I realized when I say it doesn't mean that they listen, they don't remember, they don't write it down. So what is happening here is after putting those things online on those videos, they're following instructions, and my job is a lot easier to correct them instead of going over the paper over and over again. They follow all those things that I asked them to, and which made it a lot easier. So I wanted to share this. I'm in a different meeting. I just stopped it. So it has been really, really helpful to me. Very, very helpful.
Very, thank you. Would anyone else like to share?
I'd like to back off what both of them just shared, having the video also when you grade, if they failed to do it, you can refer them back to the video that you posted. Or if they email you for directions, I often have students email me for directions. If you posted the video, and I just post the video link in the assignments, and it's there. And so if it's a complicated assignment, and then that way, you have that reassurance that you did give the instructions, they just failed to listen or failed to review it. So.
Great point, Michelle. Ron, would you like to share? I saw your hand up. I will unmute you, Ronald.
Sure. Can everybody hear me? Okay, good. I have a problem with the laptop at home. I've tried to chime in a WebEx meeting and nobody can hear me, and I can't. I check the settings over and over. It doesn't work. But I'm at school. I just have a background on. One of the things that I'm a little bit behind. I've finished the first two. Haven't finished the third module yet. But one of the things that I realized in watching these modules is, whoever the grader was for my second reflection, they kind of not in so many words, but said, what a blessing it is that I have that I actually teach classes one class is teaching students how to play instruments that they don't know how to play yet, because they're going to be music educators and they have to be able to get their teaching certificate. They have to have a certain amount of training on those instruments. And then the other one is a conducting class. All of this stuff is kinesthetic. It's not, it's not so much up here as it is, this or this. But the classes, because they're upper level classes, all of these students have been through as a cohort, have been through a 4-semester sequence of, they have a music theory class together, they have an ear training class together, and they have class piano together. And so they've been around each other for 4 semesters already. And we don't do these classes, obviously, because they're kinesthetic in nature. We don't really do a lot of discussion, but I've never had a civility problem because they're playing an instrument or they're conducting and singing. So there's not really an opportunity for anybody to say, well, that's just a stupid opinion, or anything like that. So it's really enjoyable to see. It was good for me to realize that, wow, there are problems that these people are talking about that I really don't have to deal with, because I haven't taught one of those huge understanding and enjoying music classes for, gosh, it's probably been 12 years since I've taught one of those. And there, some of this AQ stuff would have come in handy, dealing with distractions and so forth. And some of the rooms where I had to teach, the proximity thing wasn't so easy. And for instance, the proximity thing, as far as dealing with distracting students, I used proximity so much before COVID with this teaching people different instruments, because I needed to stand next to them to show them a fingering and point out, no, your finger is not quite covering that hole. That's why you can't play the note. And so having to be right, having to circulate for the sake of teaching, just kind of is preventive. That they don't get the opportunity to be a distraction. So it's kind of interesting that I was doing some of the things that they're talking about, but not for the reason that they're talking about. And COVID has made this much harder, because I can't use proximity, for some of those things. And even, like in the spring semester, having to teach clarinet that way, which clarinet's my main instrument, but I was able to be in the same room with some students, but distance, and just being in the same room with them in about 15 minutes fixed some huge problems they were having. That, trying to do it by video was not working for them. And so it is a challenge to do things online, and to not be able to use the proximity thing. But anyway, it was interesting to me to see, like I said, some of these modules, people are dealing with problems that that I don't really have to deal with. I have a different, I have a different perspective on it. But it makes me appreciate my students.
Thanks for sharing, Rania. The lack of proximity is certainly a challenge to many of us these days. Would anybody else like to make comments about their experience? Oh, Pam? Yes, Pam, certainly. I'm going to, okay, you unmuted.
My big thing is of all of the ACU stuff, the thing I appreciate most is getting to see like the shared discussions and the ideas of colleagues across campus that I would never have otherwise. And forums like this one, I just think it's opened up kind of a renewed energy and enthusiasm. So I appreciate that. But today I did implement just a slight change, because I think like many, we're doing a lot of these things, and so it's minor tweaks. So I just explained the assignment that's coming different, and I put it in context of the next several weeks, and made the invitation different in terms of follow up with me if they wanted. Immediately, somebody put in the chat, could they stay on after we closed to meet with their group with me? And then another group has set up an appointment for tomorrow morning. And I couldn't be happier, because usually they wait until the very last week in October to make those mandatory meetings. So, it's like this stuff, as simple as some of it is really working. And that's fun.
Pam, thank you. And I agree with you 100% about the renewed energy and enthusiasm. I mean, obviously this is a difficult time for many of us, and being able to share these ideas and build the community around this experience is very helpful. So, and hopefully we'll be able to continue to bring these ideas and these experiences and share them with the wider faculty body, for those faculty who are interested in what we're learning, but not necessarily enrolled in the course. So that being said, for the folks who joined us this afternoon who are not enrolled in the AQ course, do any of you have any questions for any of our participants? Anyone? No? Okay.
All right. This is Ping Tara.
Okay.
I would like to share one point of my view. In the summer too, I have some past recordings, and I post to this semester. I'm teaching the same class. I had 4 students. They looked through and read through and studied through all my summer recordings, 28 lessons. They finished the test 1, 2, 3 materials, and they sent an email to me last week. I would like to challenge you to tests 1, 2, and 3. And I say no, one at a time. So that's the benefits of having open resource like this. I really appreciate that university, and of course, Kelly give this kind of chances for us to talk. I think my students, they really benefit from this. They would like to challenge me for everything. And that's the motivations I can see my students. Attendance is always way above 75, 85%. Some students, due to some illness, cannot attend. They always politely send me some emails and explain the reason. Of course, I do not allow to share, and you know what that means. And afterwards, there's one student after all. Do you think you still have some more very helpful links for me to accomplish the tests? But I would like to challenge too. And I think it's all the positive signs from having the online classes. And I never taught this kind of classes before, but it's a wonderful experience. That's it.
Thank you, Ping. Thank you for sharing. Does anyone else have any comments or questions for the group? I don't see anyone jumping. All right, well, thank you all for your time today. Again, thank you very much to our AQ faculty participants who not only are spending this extra time and effort going through this intensive course. I mean, this is a They say 2 to 3 hours a week, but I have to say it could easily be 3 to 5 hours a week that we're investing into this course. So thank you all for not only your dedication to our students, but also to sharing what you have learned with our faculty. We would like to host another one of these next month in October. So all of you ACU folks who are here today, be on the lookout for another email from me to schedule another one. And for all of you who joined us, thank you very much for your time. And I hope you all have a wonderful, smooth week. Stay well. Thank you.